Talk and rock radio, where friends meet at the intersection of life, inspiration, and music. Here's your host, Rick Kern.
Welcome, friends, to Talk and Rock Radio. My special guest today is a musician that I've looked forward to having on my show for quite some time now. His name is Ray Roberts, but he's fondly referred to as Zoomer. Welcome, buddy.
Hey, Rick, how's it going?
Well, I know I called you buddy, but, it's really not buddy. It's Zoomer. Buddy was another guy, one of your cohorts in Applejack.
Well, buddy, pal.
Oh, man.
With a small B.
I have to tell everybody to dial back a few episodes if you want and see the buddy I'm talking about, because I did an episode with you guys that was a lot of fun, and we had an Applejack reunion a month or two ago that was absolutely a gas, having all of you guys together, and it was pretty special.
Well, thanks. We had a good time.
Yeah. Well, you've got a long history, Zoomer, in the music business, and I know it pretty much started all in El Paso, right?
Yeah. If you're talking about playing music in the clubs locally, started out when in 1969. I was 17 years old. I was still a senior in high school, and I went to work with the Shade Tree Boys.
Yeah.
I was playing 4 nights a week and still going to school and sleeping through chemistry.
Talk about the Shade Tree Boys. Now, you guys, I knew some of those guys in there. I knew Henry Beebe, and I knew Hal a little bit. But talk about who all was in the group and some of the places you guys played and everything.
Well, when I first joined, and this was in March of 1969, March the 23rd, if memory serves. And it was just Hal and Henry. They needed a bass player. They had a bass player who, you've got to be pretty bad for, Hal and Henry to fire you. This guy was sitting on top of his amp, eating a cheeseburger and playing with one hand. And so I'd been going out and hanging around and bothering them a lot, just being a pest, which is how you get a job. And they called me up, and said, "Do you play bass?" "Of course I do," I lied. They had an electric bass and a K amp, and went over to Bolero Lanes on Dyer Street, the Gaslight Lounge. And we read through some songs, and they hired me $10 a night. And it was just the 3 of us at the time. And Hal, of course, did most of the front work, and he was the foil for Henry's comedy routines, which the later the night got, the raunchier the comedy routines got. But I played bass. Hal fronted it, played rhythm guitar, and sang. And Hal named me Zoomer. I'd been in the band for several weeks, and one night he was introducing the band, and he said, "Over here on the bass, this is our bass player." He leaned over and he said, "What's your name?" I was kind of offended, and I gave him a go-to name. I said, "Yogi Zarts." and Hal was really good thinking. He was quick-minded, and he said, "This is our new bass player, Yogi Zarts. We call him alliteration, Zoomer Zarts."
Okay.
And the whole place howled, and it stuck. I got married as Zoomer Roberts. I was ordained an elder at the church as Zoomer Roberts.
There you go, man. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. I like it. I like it.
That stuck.
One of the songs that I have that the Shade Tree Boys did is "Somebody Touched Me." You want to talk about that song a little bit?
Yeah, I think Flat and Scruggs had done that, and they called it. The original words were "Somebody touched me, must have been the hand of my Lord." And for some reason, they decided, well, you can't be singing about the Lord in church, and they changed it. Somebody touched me, it must have been the hand of fate. And at the time that we recorded it, well, we didn't record it. I had a Sony reel-to-reel machine and just set it on a table out there and recorded the room. But Randy Jones, who later was such an integral member of Moon Pie, he was in the band at that time. He's playing lead guitar and mandolin, talented guy, still is. And he's singing lead on this, and the other three of us are singing harmony on the chorus. Somebody touched me.
Excellent. Now, I've got a picture that I'm going to show in this segment that had a drummer also. Who was playing drums with you guys?
At that point, that was also in 1970. Hal had left for a while, and Randy was in the band. Randy said, well, let's hire a drummer. So the drummer was a friend of mine named Ted Wasser.
Oh, okay.
And last I heard of him, and this has been over 50 years ago, but he had relocated to Denton, Texas. But we had a drummer for a while.
So,
there are no drums.
Did the Shade Tree Boys continue without a drummer after that? After he went to Denton?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was just a moment in time, and then Al came back, and I left the band for a while, and I came back, and then Henry left, and people just came and went.
I think I saw you guys at least once or twice. I don't remember the venue, but I think when you guys were really going strong, I had already left El Paso and went on the road with my bands, and didn't get back till '78. So I think by then you guys were already disbanded, and you were probably playing with the Countrymen, which I'll lead right into that right now. Talk about the Countrymen, man.
Well, that was the name of that band at the time. Uh, that was kind of my crowning moment as far as I'm concerned. Um, these were the guys that had been playing around El Paso like in the 1950s, like Dub Purvis. He had been in Wayne Johnston and the Bluebonnet Playboys in the 50s, and then in the early 60s, he had played with old Mike Oatman and the K-Hay Riders,
Yeah.
and other people. And he was on the road with Merle Lindsay, who was a Western swing name, and Carlos Van Adder, the steel player, who did not use pedals. He had been in the Ozark Jubilee road band. And
Nice.
Gordon had been around for a long time. Gordon, the drummer. Lead singer at that time was Jamie Hilliard, and he was around back in the 1950s, and he made several records, including one called "I'm Going Back to My Indian Maiden." And after I left that band, after Dub and I both left that band, the rest of them were hired to be in a film production called "When You Coming Back, Red Rider," which was filmed around here with, I think, Hal Linden started in that.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, I'm sure if you saw it, you'd know it.
Yeah.
And the band was, at the studio or the bowling alley or wherever they were playing, and they were playing Jamie's song, "I'm Going Back to My Indian Maiden." They ran through it a few times, and producer stopped it and said, "Before we go any further, who owns that song?" They said, "Well, Jamie wrote that." "Oh, well, Jamie, do you mind us using that song? Would you sell us that song? We'll give you $200 for all the rights to that song." Jamie said, "Sold."
Wow.
Most money he ever made off that song.
That's cool.
And if I can say, Jamie, I played with a lot of country singers around town, and Jamie is the one who sticks in my memory. He might not have had technically the best voice, but he was memorable. One night, somebody wanted to hear the song "Easter Parade." And he thought about it, and he turned around to the rest of us and he said, "Key of B flat, I guess. If nobody wants it, what's through and out?" And he sang "Easter Parade." And I looked over there and he had a tear running down his cheek.
Wow.
It was just the most moving thing. And he was just singing his heart out. And I've just never forgotten that. It was a moving thing. Jamie Hilliard.
The power of music, my friend. That's so cool. Talk a little bit about one of the songs. I mean, it became a great standard. I mean, in my mind anyway, "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star."
Well, that was a fiddle instrumental. It was by Bob Wills and his Texas Playboys. And we did a lot of Bob Wills music. Also some Spade Cooley and a lot of pre-Elvis music.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dub in particular said, "This used to be a pretty good business before Elvis came along and ruined it for everybody." And, but on this recording, there's something I want you to listen for, so don't edit it out. But at the beginning, you hear Dub's foot going boom, 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 boom. And that's the way they used to start songs in the old days. You'd stomp it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think in more modern times, the drummer back there will hit the sticks together. And in between times, somebody would yell, 1, 2, 3, 4. But in the old days, you stomped it off. There was even an old jazz standard called "Stomp Off, Let's Go."
Oh, cool.
That's how you started the song, set the tempo, and established where the downbeat was. 1, 2, 3. Oh, you stomp it off.
That made it kind of easy for the drummer back in those days because whoever the lead was, he was taking full responsibility whether it went too fast or too slow. So.
Yeah, he set the tempo. tell you about Gordon back there on those drums. You're a drummer, you might appreciate this. But that was an old set of drums, old set of wooden drums. He had calfskin heads on them.
Oh my gosh.
And, and every time it rained,
Oh
his
no.
hair sounded like a timpani.
Yeah.
He'd go,
Oh gosh. Especially on a day like today, it's kind of a gloomy, cloudy day in El Paso, so it would have been one of those days with this humidity.
oh, can I tell you a story about Carlos while I'm at it?
Yeah.
Funny story. We were playing a job one night, and this hippie walks up to where Carlos is sitting there with his stool. Said, "Hey, man, can you play Smoke on the Water, man?" And, well, Carlos immediately thought of the old Red Foley song from World War II. There'll be smoke on the water, on the land and the sea, when our army and navy defeat the enemy. And Carlos started singing that. And the guy just shook his head and said, "Oh, wow." Turned
I
around
love it.
and gambled off.
And everybody else wanted smoke on the water. Oh gosh, that's great.
Old ideas about how music should be played, and woe unto you if you violated that.
Yeah.
I don't have a recording of it, but I'll describe it. We used to do Proud Mary, and they did it like Bill Haley and the Comets would have done it.
Yeah.
Shuffle beat. So instead of da 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 da, it was like da 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 da.
Oh no.
It was sweet all the way through it. It was funny.
Of course, our friend Paul Quattlebaum, when he plays it, it's like on steroids, man. The meter's about 5,000. Da 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 da. I mean, going crazy.
Well,
and
that was over with sooner.
Yeah, well, that's true, and a lot harder for the drummer.
Oh, one band that used to do it as a waltz.
Oh my gosh, I don't think I ever heard it like that.
Yeah.
Oh man, well. One of your trios, Jerry, Buddy, and Zoomer. I don't know who Jerry was. Talk about the group a little bit. I don't even recognize her.
Jerry Boyer. Jerry Boyer. She sang around town for a long time. She called me on the phone around 76 or 77, around in there, and I think she was going to play the Border Folk Festival.
Oh, okay.
And would I be willing to accompany her? She needed a guitar player. So I did. And next year, she called me again. And I said, I've got this friend, Buddy Winston. Can I bring him along? So that was the germ of something right there. And for a number of years, the three of us played the Border Folk Festival every year. And that was it. It was like Saturday and Sunday, once a year. And we'd get together, would learn up a whole new set. And Buddy and I together learned some fancy songs and some jazz chords and did some hot picking. And we worked out 3-part harmonies. And we sounded great. And fortunately, I recorded all the rehearsals. But that went on for a while. Eventually, we started getting some other occasional bookings. I think you've got a photograph of us there playing the Wine Festival out at Chamberino.
Yeah.
And they had a small wooden stage set up on top of a sand dune out in the middle of nothing, and we were out there playing on that. And, we played Four Centuries 81, and we made an album. We cut a single of
Cimarron?
Well, Cimarron was an old Johnny Bond song, if you know Johnny Bond. He had been a guitar player in Gene Autry's band back in the 40s, and also recorded under his own name. He wrote a novelty song you might have heard called 10 Little Bottles. About the guy, wife wants me to get rid of these bottles. I'll just take a drink out of each one of them. I'll pour it out. And um, and later on, he was in the staff band on the Town Hall Party out of California with Tex Ritter and that bunch. But I had a 78 of Johnny Bond doing this song, and great little song, great arrangement, and nice harmony. And I played the 78 for Buddy and Jerry and said, "What do you think of doing this?" And they said, "Sure." We worked it up in three parts. I don't know if we got the ending from the Johnny Bond record or if I came up with it, but the ending is pretty much the same ending as the Beatles used on I Get By With a Little Help from My Friends. You're in E, and it goes C to A minor sixth, back to E, resolves. And that's Sergeant Pepper ending on that old Johnny Bond song there.
It's a killer song, man. You guys really did a nice job with it. The harmonies are really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, really liked it.
It was
Excellent.
a good band, and it was our side gig for many years.
Well, you had the right combination, man. You could really tell the chemistry was good, and the vocals were tight, really nice, good harmonies, every good blend, everything.
You know, one of my favorite stories, and I'll tidy it up just a little bit for you. But at one point in time, Applejack was doing an open mic night at the Gasoline Alley on North Mesa Street. And people would get up and sing, and they'd get up, play guitar or something. And one night, this guy gets up and taps on the microphone, test. And he introduced himself. He said, "Hi, folks, I'm Country Joe Maynard. I don't sing. I don't play the guitar. I don't dance. I don't do," and he said, squat. "I don't do squat." And he got off the bandstand, went back and sat down.
And that was it.
Well, that's the only thing from open mic night that I remember. Joe Maynard.
Or at least that you can share.
Well, there's that. Oh, I got a story for you. Cancer Treatment Center used to have a fundraising deal every year. And Buddy Winston worked, of course, that was his day job, was at the Cancer Treatment Center. And they'd bring in these professional football players, and they'd play golf. That was what they did. And you'd go out there and pay money to see these names, and they would hire Applejack because because Buddy was in the band. And we were up there one day, and I had one of those old Fender basement amps, the ones that are about as tall as you are.
Yeah.
And we had just started the set, and I'd gotten up there with a fresh can of Coors beer. And ladies and gentlemen, have a nice round of applause for Terry Bradshaw. Terry Bradshaw, lumbers up on stage, sees that can of beer, picks it up, chugs half of it, sang a couple of Hank Williams songs, turned to get back off the stage, grabbed my beer again, tossed it the rest of the way down, crumpled the can, got off. And
wow.
And that was it. Terry Bradshaw drank my beer. And I told my folks about that later, and they thought it was hilarious. And from that day on, anytime we were watching TV together and Terry Bradshaw came on TV, my father would say, "Hey, there's your drinking, buddy."
What you should have done, Zoom, is kept that can and have him autograph it, man. You might have some good money today on that.
I might have. Well, I should have, shouldn't I?
Yeah, well, we didn't know about stuff like that those days, I guess, but it would have been kind of fun to have anyway. Could have sold it on eBay and who knows what, Crazy. Zoomer one-man band memories. Talk about that a little bit, man.
Let me get a drink of water first.
Okay.
Maybe you can edit that out.
No problem.
Or leave it in. About halfway through the 80s, Rick, I started having some trouble with my extremities. That's medical talk for your arms and legs. And my fingers wouldn't work properly. And I kept playing, but I had to keep making adjustments. I went from playing lead guitar to bass to simpler bass, and from simpler bass to I got an electric keyboard and played it with one finger, played the bass notes on that. Fortunately, Applejack songs are pretty simple, so I got away with it for a long time. But the doctors looked me over, and I was misdiagnosed as having amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, Lou Gehrig's disease. It was a misdiagnosis. But thought I was going to buy the farm. And one afternoon out at Gasoline Alley again, out on the patio, Sharon Cobb was out there. She used to be Sharon Hodge, a local songwriter.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, she was married to
Ty Cobb.
Not Ty Cobb, Tex Cobb.
I mean, oh yeah, another Cobb.
Yeah, no relation to Ty Cobb.
Cousin of Corn on the Cob, right?
Yeah, no relation. I mean, I like Ty Cobb, but
yeah, I like Ty Cobb. That would have been a good one. Yeah,
I got to get my name.
Tex Cobb. He was a wrestler, I think, right?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah,
and also did some movies, but anyway, Sharon's come around watching me and talking to me, and you said, if you could meet anybody, who would it be? And I thought we were just talking, and I said, well, Hank Snow. And if you don't know who Hank Snow was, well, he was obviously a country singer, but he did the original version of "I'm Moving On" and the first recording of "Now and Then There's a Fool Such as I." First recording of "I've Been Everywhere," and in my eyes, just a giant. He'd been a singing cowboy up in Canada, and he could sing anything. He played his own lead guitar. He was a songwriter, great frontman, great guitar player, and his career had just lasted decade after decade after decade. I had dozens of Hank Snow albums, and he was a hero. I said, if I could meet anybody, it would be Hank Snow. And She went back, talked to Tex about it, and next thing you know, Monica and I are going to fly from El Paso to Nashville, meet Hank Snow at the Grand Ole Opry, and I'm going to give him a cassette of this one man band thing that I had done a couple of years earlier. And that was pretty exciting. That was heady stuff.
Oh man.
And had our picture taken with him, of course, and handed him the tape. And the tape, let me say, was done over at Charles Harding's house. And Charles Harding was the bluegrass man in town. All the bluegrass people hung around Charles's house. When bluegrass people came to town, they went to Charles's house. And he had a 4-track cassette recorder. And I went over there one day and laid down about 6 tracks with rhythm guitar, vocal, lead guitar, and stand-up bass, and did a quick mono mix. Went home with the cassette in my pocket. I handed Hank Snow a tape of that, and we went and met him and got an autographed picture. And I was scared to death, but we got back home, and it was quite an event. And about 3 days later, he calls me on the telephone and says, "Ray, this is Hank Snow. I've listened to your tape." And I'm not making this up. I've got a recording of it. I hit the record button on the answering machine. And he said, "I think you did a fine job, and I'm not trying to butter you up." And wow.
Wow.
Here's the guy whose guitar playing I've admired and tried to copy, and he's heard me play, and he likes it. And he called me up to tell me so. Here's a guy in the Country Music Hall of Fame. And from that time until he died, which I think was in 1999, about 11 years later, he and I kept up a steady correspondence. And we talked on the phone a few more times, but I was friends with Hank Snow.
Isn't that cool, man?
And and meeting that hero worked out all right.
Man, that kind of made up for not playing at the Grand Ole Opry, didn't it?
Yeah,
Wow, what a story, man! I love that. When there,
Where the song came from?
yeah, tell us where the song came from, man.
Well, it was written back in 1915 by Gus Kahn, and I've got it written down here. Um, I can't remember this name. Egbert Van Alstyne. And the best version I ever heard of it was recorded by Bing Crosby before I was born. But one of my favorite types of music, ever since I can remember, has been old-fashioned waltzes with pretty chords. And
You and me both, Zoomer. You know, when I was a youngster, the first instrument I played was a Hammond chord organ. I don't know if you remember that. On the left side were all the buttons, probably about 60 of them, and then you'd play the lead on the right and hit the chords, you know, on the buttons. And Memories was one of the songs that I remember playing.
is it?
Yeah,
It's a beautiful old song.
yeah.
Song. I played it as close to the style of Hank Snow as I could under the circumstances. My fingers were already getting kind of iffy, and I'll go ahead and tell you that guitar that I was playing, it wasn't my guitar, and it had a dead string on it.
Oh,
A high string. It was you had to try to work around it because that string just went thump.
oh, wow. Pretty cool, man. Good stuff. In 2008, there was a special event that took place, and you were a major part of that event, being an alumni of Irvin High School, and Donna Pence. And, of course, Donna was instrumental in putting together one of the coolest high school reunion mixer gigs I've ever seen in my life. But it was at Big Al's in 2008. It was a bar over on Airport Road, and
Yeah.
and Donna had asked me to kind of MC the event that night. We had Rod Crosby doing the sound, and a whole bunch of bands came to play in that, at that event for free. But I tell you what, it was a memorable event because I remember we had about 150 people crammed in that little club, and about another 150 or so outside the door. The word traveled fast, and people wanted to come and go and see what was going on. But that highlight of that event was me and my wife watching you perform Little Darlin'. And I tell you what, man, it has become just a classic. Every time we think of Zoomer Roberts, we think of Little Darlin'. It is such a great song. You do such a good version. And, and for the people out there that don't know this, that have never seen him do it, he sings the high and the low parts. And so that's what makes it so unique. It's really a fun song.
Well, thank you. But perspective is a funny thing. To me, the highlight of that show at Big Al's was the Bobby Fuller Faux, Faux,
Yep.
doing Dance at Her, Dance at Her, Dance.
Yeah.
That was great.
It was so much fun. We had Dalton Powell on drums, we had Ron Stone on guitar, Doug Neal on bass, Rod Crosby on guitar, Jack Woodbury on guitar. It was a great night. It really was. I even got to get up there and play with Donna. We kind of put together our Sacred Mushroom band, and with people that had never played White Rabbit before. And that was, let's just say it's not something that I like to listen to more than one time after that event.
Yeah. Well,
yikes.
That one. Need to go to the room and run through that one once.
Yeah, one of the things that happened from that night, and of course we called it the Border Legends Jam, and it's what makes this so unique is that Zoomer's the one that came up with the name Border Legends, and we did this jam, and then it was a year later that I had been doing this blog on musicians of El Paso and everything, and we thought, well, why don't we maybe put together something a little more formalized and do an annual show, see how this turns out. Well, we had it at Lancers Club East, and it ended up being a huge success. And then that's when I asked you permission to use the name Border Legends of El Paso, and it stuck, and Rod and I produced this show for 8 continuous years, and it wasn't till recently, Zoomer, that I realized that you got that name from Long John Hunter.
Well, yeah, he had an album out called Border Town Legend.
Yeah. And I was looking at your Facebook site, and I came across that thing, and I thought, wow, that's where Zoomer got that from. That's so cool,
And now that you found me out, I'm going to have to return all that royalty money.
Oh, that's no big deal, man. His wife will be okay with all of that. She's a super lady. I've met her, and so was he. He was just what a crown jewel, man. We loved going to Juarez and seeing Long John, and
oh yeah.
I never got to see him at the King's X. My buddy, Johnny Thompson and a lot of the guys were playing in that band for 5 years, and just loved it. Loved playing with Long John. But I love going over there and taking people from out of town to go to the lobby and see this crown jewel that El Paso / Juarez had. He was incredible.
But one time in 1973, I had a little band called Bent Fender and the Moonglows, and we played at the King's X on Long John's nights off.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was a big deal. We lasted months.
Well, I'm sorry I missed that, because that's the year that we went on the road in 73 and didn't come back till 78. So. Yeah. What kind of stuff were you all doing as the Moonglows?
Oh, Bent Fender and the Moonglows. Had a piano player, Tony Custer, and he did a lot of Elton John, and he had a repertory of old sing-along songs. He had been playing at Shakey's Pizza Parlor.
Okay.
And he'd get up there wearing a straw boater and a sleeve garter, and he did songs like Heart of My Heart and songs like Heart of My Heart. And we did some John Denver and some old rock and roll, and it was a cool little band. Me, Tony Custer, and my friend Bill Owen.
Oh, okay. Nice. I think back to the country music scene in El Paso, and I lived a lot of it through my parents, because they loved to go out to Tom Bell's on the weekend and go dancing and everything. And I think there was also a place called the Red Barn over on Alameda.
Yep.
Yeah, and they like to go there and cut a rug over there a little bit too. But some of the names that I remember, I don't know if you ever came across any of these, but one of them, there was a steel guitar player that I met at Dick Wright's house. You remember Dick Wright, right? Dick and Nell Wright. Dick is who I was named after. I'm a John Richard Kern, but the Richard came from Dick, from Richard, Dick Wright. And he was just a dear friend of our family's ever since I was just a little boy. And we would go over there on the weekends, and my uncles, Jim and Bill Crutcher, they were with the El Paso Natural Gas Company, but they would go over there on the Sundays and stuff on the weekends and jam with Dick, and he'd be playing guitar with his echo machine that he had going, and we had on steel guitar a gal named Karma Dean. Did you ever know Karma Dean?
Afraid not.
Yeah. And then Lloyd Dalton. I'm trying to think of a lot of the guys that went back in those days. Gail Hageman, Dub Purvis. You know, we talked a little bit about Dub. Frank Dove.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I know somebody that I really never got to see play drums, but she played with you on this song, "Little Darlin'," Cindy Beckford.
Well, if you never got to see her, you missed something because she was a force of nature.
Boy, she was good, man. I mean, her meter was really good. And how long did you play with Cindy?
Um, she and I were both in Cliff Seaman's band. I was in that band from 74 to 76. He was already in it when I joined and still in it when I left. Also, I went to high school with her. She was in
Oh,
the
okay.
band, but she was great. A few years later, 1982, when I decided, well, everybody else is selling records. I'm gonna record Little Darling. I'll sell some records and make a bunch of money. So I did, and I didn't. But I didn't think twice about who I would ask to play drums. I called Cindy.
Tell me a little bit about, what's really sweet about this whole event is that you recorded that at Martin Studios, Scott Martin's place.
Yeah.
And ironically, that's the same place that Buddy Winston owns today with Star City Studios, and you've performed that song there. So it's pretty sweet how it all came around full circle. But who all was in that recording session besides you and Cindy on Little Darlin'?
Buddy Winston was on it. It was just the three of us.
Oh, okay.
Cindy played drums. Buddy played rhythm guitar. I played lead guitar, bass, and did all the vocals. And since we were recording it, instead of, just try to jump back and forth, I just overdubbed all the vocal parts so it would sound like a group of singers. And I thought it sounded great, but people would listen to the record and they'd say, "Oh, I like it better live."
bubbles rock. But do the guy. Do but the lover. But what is just for you?
Yeah.
Because I used to say it's not a song, it's a stunt.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a stunt, but it was a visual thing. Just training to hit the high notes and then trying to hit the low notes, and it was something to watch. But I'm still proud of the record. But the voices are all me.
It's a fun song. We included that song in one of my vocal show bands out in L.A. and it was part of our of an oldies medley that we did, and with Teen Angel and a bunch of stuff that was thrown in there with it. But it's always been a fun song. But what makes it so especially cool is you singing the high and the low parts, especially when you're doing it with just Buddy behind you. It's just it's so raw and out there, but you do a great job, man. Really good.
I tell you what, it took me a while to pay for that session, but what I mostly remember about it was that record was on jukeboxes. It was on jukeboxes up and down Dyer Street. There was at one point we were in the Kern Place Tavern over on Cincinnati Street, and somebody went put some money in the jukebox, and here came my record. And that was a treat.
That's so cool, man. That is so cool. Well, my friend, this is going to conclude our episode. We've covered a lot of topics here, and I'm so glad to have done this episode with you, Zoomer. Thank you for being a part of Talkin' Rock Radio, man. This is one of my all-time favorite moments is doing this show with you, my friend.
Well, it was my pleasure. Thank you for asking me. Oh, can I say hello to somebody?
You sure can.
I say hello to a friend of mine, Bud Sanders. I haven't forgot to include you.
There you go, man. Bud's a good guy. Yeah.
Bud's a great guy. I played a job with him at the Disco Q in Juarez one night, and coming back over, they did not want to let us into the United States. I had round glasses, and my hair was long and parted down the middle. And here's Bud. He looks like Elvis, and he had this fire engine red pickup truck, and they looked at us and said, "Pull over."
Uh-oh.
They were sure we had something. We didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting, man. Thanks again, Zoomer, and
thank you, Rick.
And I'm planning on seeing you guys at the Jam.
I'll be there.
Yeah, that's coming up. For anybody that's interested, Applejack's going to be doing a Jam. What's the date on that thing?
September the 18th.
Out there for sure. I want to see you guys do your thing, man. It'll be fun.
2 to 4 in the afternoon, so all of us older musicians don't have to drive at night.
There you go.
And Rick, I'm going to say to you what Hank Snow said to me over the telephone, and I quote, "My regards to your missus."
She will be glad to hear that, Zoomer. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Rick.
And my regards to your wife, Monica. Take care, buddy.
Okay, thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.